I hope and pray that my story has helped you, encouraged you, and showed you how the hand of God can come into play in your supernatural childbirth story and journey. And I just want to go through some few tips that can help you now handle the mother baby section when you are transferred from the delivery room into a place where now they take care of you and the baby. The first thing you want to do before or after you are settled in the room, speak over that room, pray over the room, declare the presence of God to take a preeminence over that room. Declare that no spiritual activity that can work against you and the baby in the atmosphere will affect you, but you will replace it with the peace and the tranquility of the presence of God. Number two, and this is something I wish I did before I progressed to number two. It's something I wish I did in my first birth, because during my first birth, the first delivery room we were given, after a while, the monitors stopped working, so I had to be transferred to another room. I learned later that a woman that was there prior to me in that same room was taken into an immediate emergency C-section, and that ended up to happen to me as well. I don't want to say it was a coincidence. Nothing is coincidence. If I had known to speak over my environment at that time, I think that would have been something that probably would have made the situation or the transition smoother and would have helped quite a lot. So please speak over your room, speak over your environment, take charge. You have the power inside of you to speak over every environment. Don't let anything dictate that. Speak life and speak God into your atmosphere. Number two, keep the environment calm and heavenly. Continue with those worship music as you played. Now it's time to praise God. Put on some praise music. Dance to the Lord if you have the strength to stand up. Praise the Lord instead of now bowing before him and worshiping him. It's time to now praise him, for his doings have been great. He took you through the most intense part of it, which is the labor and delivery, and you have seen the goodness of God. You are there with your amazing little miracle. So keep that environment instead of taking the remote and grabbing the next station they have on the TVs they put for you in the room. Keep the environment as heavenly and praiseworthy as you are still expecting to keep hearing God. Don't put him out of the equation. The job has just begun. Number three, remember to rest. Allow the person or the persons with you take care of the baby. I know this is easier said than done, but please, I'm sure the person you took with you there is someone you can trust. So allow them to stay with the baby for an hour or so that you can also gain some rest. You can also do some personal care on yourself. And if you want to hand them over to the nurses, and something I'll touch on later, the nurses are allowed, or they can take your baby for a few hours if you need to rest. While I was in nursing school, I remember when we rotated that department, the department of mother and baby, there was a woman who gave birth, brought to the floor. She had nobody with her in the room, and she had pushed for 4 hours straight. She was exhausted, her face was red, she was tired. And I remember we were taught and told by our professor, you can help the mother by staying with the child for them to gain some rest. And that's what I did. I asked her, would you mind if I could stay with your baby for an hour, 2 or 3, depending on how much you want to rest? And you can gain some rest, have some sleep, maybe take a shower. And you should have seen the face on this woman. She was like, really, are you guys allowed to do that? Because I had explained to her that I was a student nurse at that time, and she was so gracious and so happy. And trust me, I felt like I was an angel sent to that woman at that time, to just see her face after 4 hours of sleep. She was so relaxed, she was so joyous and more beautiful than she looked before, because of how tired labor had caused her to look before that. So the nurses are allowed to take your baby. Ask and it shall be given. Then ask, if you're tired, just ask them, could you please take my child for a few hours for me to get some rest? In that same topic, I want to talk about advocating for yourself and your baby. At that time, you are the first advocate between you and your baby. Not everybody gets to go to a hospital that have strict policies or good people working at that time. So you have to remember to communicate your needs to the nurse that's taking care of you. Let them know the windows of time that they can come in. Make sure, if you want to keep your baby with you, communicate to them, hey, at this time, since my baby is sleeping, I want to be able to sleep during this time. If there be any test or things happening, can we push them maybe after an hour, so that they don't keep coming in the room? I know probably you have seen this cliche thing that goes around, that the time you want to sleep at the hospital is when every nurse keeps coming in. So make sure you communicate. The reason that happens because we don't communicate with our nurses and be like, I would like just an hour or two to just rest, and then we can do the motions of the day. So ask them, communicate with them, and let them know. Number 5 on advocating. Now, this is another point under advocating for yourself and your baby. Keep your baby somewhere where you or someone you trust can keep an eye on them always. They usually tell us at the hospital, if you're going to the bathroom and no one else is in the room, call the nurse. Don't leave your baby unattended while you use the bathroom. Or don't let someone who you don't trust, even if it's your nurse or medical team. Remember that this time you have switched nurses. If you don't feel comfortable them staying with the baby, have them do the tests that they need to do in the room. They are allowed to. If it's blood tests, they need to do physicals for the baby, they have to check the baby, they can do them in the room. Even hearing test, and the book that we are writing can give you all this information, the tests that they will take after delivery, so that you are aware. Ask your hospital the things that are usually done there. So make sure you are in sight of the baby. If you get an amazing nurse that like I did, I was able to trust her. And remember, my very close friend who works on the same floor too was there as well. So since my child was a boy and I wanted circumcision to happen, they did it. She went over and watched it, which is another thing to advocate. If you want circumcision, speak to them. You don't have to. So express those things so that they don't immediately take your boy for circumcision and it was against your rules or against your spiritual values and beliefs. So make sure you communicate those things. Also, after they take your baby, let's say for example, as I mentioned before, you want to take some rest and they take your baby for you, make sure you tell them, if the baby is hungry, please bring the baby back and I would like to feed them before you can take them away. Because when the baby is on the other side with the nurses and you said no disturbance, the first reaction, the baby is probably gonna get hungry. We have formulas on the other side, so we feed the baby the formula, and maybe you wanted to exclusively breastfeed. So, and then when the baby tastes that formula, sometimes for most babies it's very difficult for them to go back to drinking breast milk. So make sure you let the nurses know that. If you have no issue as or the nurses giving the baby that formula, no problem. Just tell them, if the baby is hungry, don't bother me, I want to sleep, then we can try the journey of breastfeeding later. Or for those who are sticking to formula, it's not a big deal for the baby to take it firsthand. The next thing that you should use or ask for while you're advocating for yourself, ask for a pump. Let's say for example you're exclusively breastfeeding and you would like to start pumping, you are allowed to pump at the hospital. They should be able to provide a pump for you. Or like I did, I brought my own pump to the hospital. You can bring the manual one or an electric one, or the movable ones that they have, which are really good these days. You just put them on your bra and you can move around with them, the portable ones. So ask for it. At the hospital, they do provide a pump for you, and you can begin storing some milk for your baby, which will come in handy as they start consuming more than they do at the moment. Next on, you can also require a pacifier. This is a soother. If you're willing to start at the journey of your baby using a pacifier, most people have different variations on when they want their children to start on pacifiers or not. So these are things you need to prepare ahead of time. Maybe bring your own if you want, or at the hospital they also provide this. And how did I know this? I asked ahead of time. So make sure as you're going to the hospital visit, you ask what free things or regular things they provide and what they don't provide, so that if you wanted to start your baby on a pacifier, you can bring your own if they don't offer one. Remember to make sure it's the right shape. You don't want the round ones. You want, I'll indicate through a picture, you want the ones that make like a curve, because of when your baby's gums and teeth are growing out, the round ones tend make their gums to make a like a U on the top. The top palate makes a U, so you don't want to do that. I did that with my first child, and now I've learned not to do that again. So make sure you check on the shape of the pacifier that and use the right one for your child. Last but not least, on advocating for yourself, let them know when you would like to visitors to come in and when you don't want visitors. Let them know I won't be having visitors for the next 6 hours. I don't want anyone who comes to claim they're coming to see me to be let in. You have to advocate you for yourself. That should be the time you're resting, taking care of your babies. I understand in different traditions and places of worship or family structures, they have different ways where they do this. Some of them I've seen at the hospital when I was a student nurse. There are some babies that were born and there are specific members of the families that have to come immediately. So let your nurses know. And this is something to include in the plan, birth plan, to include, to tell the nurses in the mother and baby floor the people that you're expecting and how they should handle who comes when, the respect things that you guys carry in your culture, so that the nurses know ahead of time not to interfere with that. All right, that's the end on advocating yourself. Number 6, back to my points, watch how the nurses help baby. And if it is not something you're familiar with or is your first baby, make sure you ask questions for things you don't understand. Don't let the nurse do something to your baby and you just look over it. Or when the nurses are looking after your baby, listening to their heartbeat, giving them a bath, you're just on your phone. Please make sure you observe what they're doing, because guess what? After the discharge date, you're the one doing all the work. So please make sure you watch, ask questions. Don't be afraid. Don't be scared to not to ask. Don't be scared to ask. That is where that's why the nurses are there, to answer all your questions and to help you out. Number 7, don't let the professionals just come in and walk out. What do I mean by this? Like my first birth experience, after I went to the mother and baby floor the next day, since it was a cesarean section, I stayed there for about 3 days and a half. For my VBAC, I was there. I was discharged the next day. Yeah, that's how amazing that was. I remember during my first birth, the lactation nurse came in, and I was breastfeeding my daughter when she came in, and she just heard the baby swallow. And she said, that's what we want to be hearing. Took some hand sanitizer and said, I think you're doing a proper job. Just let me know. This is my number. Call me if you have any questions. And she walked out. I had no experience on how to breastfeed. I had not done any research. So her saying that the way that sounds, that gurgle when the child swallows, is what I should be listening for, I took it and thought that's it. After 3 days, I went home, and the baby was not latching the way she was supposed to latch. So, guess what? My nipples started tearing and becoming sensitive, and all these things. And it was the most painful, excruciating, painful experience that I had with my postpartum journey. So, please, don't let those professionals, and that's just an example that I used, don't let, there are so many professions that will come into social worker, um HRs will come to take your records. You will have physicians who come to check the brain, the activity, the size of your child's head. Don't let them just walk in and go out. As I said, ask questions, understand what you should ask ahead of time, study about breastfeeding, what you should know, what you should understand, so that you know how to ask the right questions. Number 8, remember that you have to eat. Ask for food. Now you have the right to eat based on how you delivered. My first experience, I had the C-section, so I couldn't just eat solid food right after. But with this miracle of a VBAC, I was able to eat anything that I wanted. So make sure you ask for food, and don't be afraid to order food. It's under the bill that you paid, so don't starve yourself. You can also order out. Maybe you have a favorite food or meal that you want your family members or your loved ones to bring for you. Make sure you ask for the food. Number 9, provide personal comfort for yourself. What do I mean? This is the time for you to take a warm shower, and hospital showers are the best. Especially that water feels like a hotel shower. Well, based on the hospital you go, and take a shower. Enjoy that moment, that feel of scrubbing your body after it went such an intense and miraculous journey. You want to reward it with a warm shower. The first shower that you give, you have to be monitored by a nurse, because you're regaining your strength, your body is getting back to normal. I remember they had to help me walk to, my nurse had to help me walk to the bathroom. My legs were a bit shaky. With my C-section, I was not allowed to walk immediately because I still had the catheter. So I had to use the catheter for a while. So I couldn't walk immediately. Afterwards as well, because of the wound and the suture incision that I had, they had to keep monitoring me to make sure that the epidural had completely ran off my body before I could stand up and fall, because I couldn't feel my legs for a while. So remember to take a shower. Look your best. If you enjoy putting on some makeup, do some makeup, put your hair up. Just look good. It makes you feel good about yourself. It makes you want to do the next thing, which is put on some stylish and comfy clothes that makes you feel like a new mama, and also wants you to do the next thing. Take pictures. Take loads of pictures. If you have your significant other there, or your family member or your loved one who can take nice pictures, have them take pictures. You will really want to remember this amazing moment. I wish I recorded my labor and delivery, because it would have been easier to put some clips in here to encourage you, but I didn't. But afterwards, I made sure I took pictures, took time to take pictures of my baby, so that I could look back on them and look back at how I looked and bless God for that time. Dress your baby as well. I didn't do that with my first, because everything was so off. It felt weird. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to put on her and things like this time round. I had bought a nice hat, a nice cute matching swaddle. So do those little things. They just bring out the best out of you. Remember, we are talking about those things that bring out that power inside of you, so that you can see the exceeding blessing of God. Next, do not neglect prayer and reflection in God's goodness. Remember, I talked about keeping your environment very, very conducive for God. Don't neglect this. Of course, it's not going to look like when you go in your personal time at home and you're able to spend time with God, but it looks something like when you're changing your diaper, give thanks. changing your baby's diaper, give thanks. When you're changing those clothes or taking a shower, give thanks. Make sure you keep an atmosphere of adoring God, because this is when you need to even hear God more than you needed during your childbirth, because it's where now you're responsible for another human being. So you need your spirit to be very alert because of the many activities that will happen after this. Even when you're breastfeeding, take that time to speak over your baby. Tell God, Lord, keep speaking to me on how to take care of this child in this season. Thank you for trusting me with this child you have given me, that I may train her or him in the ways of the Lord. Last but not least, number 10, thank your support system. We forget this a lot. Express sincere gratitude to them for them being present and taking you through this. I discussed this in my book on things that you can use as presents. There are things, remember, I've been a student nurse, so I know some of the few things, and also I've inquired through research from my close friend who works on the mother and baby floor. Gifts that you can take for the nurses and the support system that takes care of you. It's such a nice gesture to present gifts to them and say thank you. Thank you for this being part of this wonderful miracle that God has given me. Thank you for helping me through. Without God working through you, I don't know how this would have been. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for holding me up and encouraging me even when I thought I couldn't do it. So it's always so good to make sure that you have a little Thanksgiving card or gift to say thank you to every support person involved during your childbirth journey. So I know this was a long one, but I really wanted to pour my heart out so that I can efficiently and effectively help you. And I know that you will follow these stages and you will see a great outcome at the end of it all. So I urge you, don't forget to get my book. It will be coming out on the next episode. I'll give you more resources. We'll talk about when the book launch is coming out. Yes, very soon. And also don't forget, because this, to buy and purchase this book, both ebook or physical copy, and it will help you delve deep into strategies and explanation on every single stage that we have talked about in this video. It will be a more in-depth and a spot-on book that you can just go on the table of contents, top content, look it up, and find exactly what you need when you need it. All right, God bless you. Thank you for following me through this journey. I'll see you on our next episode as we find out how to grow as mamas on this new chapter of your life. God bless you. See you next time.